Thank you. Mr. Wenstrup, the leader of numerous provisions in this bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to strike the last word. And I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, and all those involved, Mr. Neal, everybody involved with this process, getting us here today. And I'm pleased to be here today to mark up this important legislation because it represents to me a clear win for American families and for job creation in America. While the legislation we're considering is by no means perfect, I look at the agreement before us today and I see a whole lot that I like. And it sounds like we have many on both sides of the aisle that are willing to take the Reagan approach. If I can get 80% of what I want, I'll get it, I'll take it, and then we'll move on from there and fight for the other 20. And I hope that's what happens today. But when I think about tax policy, I think about making America the best place in the world to do business. I think the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was a huge step towards making our tax code globally competitive and bringing more business investment back to the United States. The less it costs to produce a quality product, the less it costs on the shelf, and the more Americans can afford something. And since the TCJA passed, we've seen zero corporate inversions. Instead, we've seen American businesses bringing back their overseas earnings and fuel investment and wage growth in the United States. The Tax Relief for American Families and Workers Act builds upon the progress made by the TCJA by enacting pro-growth changes that will incentivize greater investment in the United States. And this is key. This is key towards attempts to secure our supply chain, which we know we are very vulnerable in many, many areas. All sectors of our economy stand to benefit from the provisions of this package. It will support greater research and development. Manufacturers can expand, make capital investments, support small businesses trying to grow their operations. So I'm grateful to the Chairman for his work in negotiating critical provisions that will support more affordable housing development. It's important in Southern Ohio. I hear from my communities we need more housing, especially for the working class. As many times I call it workforce housing. And that's a win-win for everybody. So I'm proud to be one of the lead co-sponsors of the Affordable Housing Credit Improvement Act. And, you know, outside experts estimate that these provisions in the bill that we have will help finance the development of 200,000 new affordable housing units by 2025. We have working people in my district that are staying in homeless shelters and getting up and going to work each day. I want to reiterate my strong support for this package, but I want to touch on some other tax priorities that were not included, but I hope we can consider them soon. H.R. 2662, Collegiate Housing and Infrastructure Act, that I have with Ms. Sewell. It makes college more affordable to students by eliminating an arbitrary distinction in the current tax code that allows colleges and universities to use charitable contributions to build and maintain student housing, but prevents other non-for-profit student housing entities like fraternities and sororities from doing the same. So not only would this legislation help improve housing affordability for students, it would also allow nonprofit student housing entities to use these tax-exempt funds on critical security measures. Right now, Jewish fraternities and sororities report that they have had to drastically increase security measures at a great cost in order to protect Jewish students who simply wish to live in peace. I also want to mention briefly H.R. 700, the Supply Chain Disruptions Relief Act. We know during the pandemic the supply chain issues were very clearly evident. We had a shortage of vehicle production, semiconductors we couldn't get. And, you know, auto dealers often use an inventory accounting method known as last in, first out, or LIFO, which requires dealerships to maintain a minimum level of inventory at the end of the year or risk triggering a large tax bill. So to reduce this LIFO recapture by the end of the tax year, businesses generally restock inventory at the start of the year because inventory shortfalls can be taxed as ordinary income. So the uncontrollable vehicle shortages that occurred in 2020 and 2021 prevented many of our community auto dealers from replacing their vehicles, which risks triggering a large tax bill if we don't act to provide relief. This is Mr. Arrington's bill, and I want to express my support for that as well. But I'm grateful for the work that's being done, for what we are doing here today, and I think it's a step in the right direction. And I guess I have 50 weeks left with Mr. Blumenauer, and we'll try and get as many things done as we possibly can. And yeah, I will try to make them count. Thank you, and I yield back.